Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Periakimai channel, where we are wrapping up with the witnesses to the golden plates. We will start to move into other things with the next episode. This one is dealing with the 8 witnesses to the Book of Mormon and to their testimony. The 8 witnesses claimed a more physical experience with the golden plates than the other witnesses. They claimed to have hefted the plates and have felt the engravings. They provided the material witness that acts as a counterbalance to the spiritual witness of the 3 witnesses. But should we accept their testimony as sufficient evidence for the reality of the Nephite record? In this part of the LDS Truth Claim series, Brett McDonald begins with a discussion about the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence. He gives an accurate enough definition of direct evidence, which is good, considering his educational and professional background, where Brett defines direct evidence as evidence that proves existence of the fact in issue without inference or presumption. The New York State United Court system defines it as evidence of a fact based on a witness's personal knowledge of that fact acquired by means of the witness's senses. These are reasonably similar definitions. Brett's example is that of a witness personally witnessing the defendant stab the victim. A reasonable enough example. Brett then rightly points out that whether the witness is believed is immaterial as to whether the statement is by nature direct evidence, meaning that an unbelievable claim is still direct evidence for that claim. It just may not be very good evidence. Brett's definition of circumstantial evidence is evidence that is not a direct observation of the fact in question, but evidence of a fact which reasonably infers the existence or non-existence of another fact. We are, again, off to a good start here. Brett's example for this is fine, I guess. Instead of a witness who saw the stabbing, we have a witness who saw the defendant go into the house with a knife, heard the victim scream, and saw the defendant run out without the knife. He then notes that the victim was later found with a knife in their back. The witness testimony is circumstantial evidence of the defendant's guilt, Brett rightly states here. But there are other pieces of circumstantial evidence as well. The knife being in the victim's back is circumstantial evidence. Other forensic evidence, such as blood or other DNA evidence, will also serve as circumstantial evidence. Expert testimony will serve as circumstantial evidence. It may be worth noting that in Brett's profession, entire cases have been decided solely on the basis of circumstantial evidence, where no direct evidence was available at all. So in the case of the golden plates, the testimony of the 8 witnesses is direct evidence of the existence of the golden plates. This is fair enough. Circumstantial evidence might include discussions about the reliability of the witnesses. For instance, all of them were either Smiths or Whitmers, whether by blood or, in the case of Hiram Page, marriage. The only exception among the formal witnesses to being so connected to the Smiths or the Whitmers is Martin Harris. And Martin Harris had an early, significant financial stake in the enterprise that would be considered a biasing factor in any critical examination of the case for LDS truth claims. As Mark Twain put in his review of the Book of Mormon, I could not feel more satisfied and at rest if the entire Whitmer family had testified. Going back to the second episode of the series, having friends and family and associates testify of something really cool that you did or have is fine. But it is far from the most compelling evidence. It would be better if there were some hostile witnesses and just random uninterested parties also testifying of the same thing. Going back to the example of the stabbing, if it turned out that the witness who claimed to see the defendant stab the victim was also the victim's best friend and had personal animosity for the defendant, we may be right to question the reliability of the witness's testimony without other facts to corroborate their witness. What this gets us to is this. The testimony of the 8 witnesses is not going to be sufficient to establish whether or not Joseph Smith had plates as he claimed. McDonald wants to assert that, as the formal witnesses' proposition, the testimony of the 8 formal natural witnesses is reliable. But he cherry picks facts and arguments to build the case for this, while not dealing with the fact that all of the individuals involved were either Smiths or Whitmers. Whitmers who survived long enough followed David and John into leaving Joseph Smith and became involved in the Whitmerite breakoff. The Smiths were committed to their brother and son. In the end, the reliability of the 8 witnesses will be best mediated through the circumstantial evidence that surrounds their claim. This can include, but is not limited to, the provenance of the claimed artifacts, the historical reliability of the claims made in what is claimed to be a translation of the text, Though John Whitmer raises a really important point in one of the quotes McDonald shares about how the plates could have existed, but the translation be hot garbage. The presence of the artifacts in the designated sites, such as Cumorah, and so on. In other words, the validity of the formal witness's proposition cannot be established here, and it relies on our examination on the other circumstantial evidence. Argument 1 now reads to include two new propositions as premises F and G. Premise F now reads, 8 men testified of seeing, lifting, and inspecting the plates, and their testimonies are reliable. Premise G, there is no direct evidence against the proposed fact that Joseph possessed plates of ancient design and received divine authority. Premise F is merely a restatement of the formal witness proposition, which we found to be unsubstantiated by the evidence provided. In Premise G, McDonald contends that critics have no direct evidence against LDS truth claims, and fair enough. I think he very well may be correct about that. But so what? The evidence that he has presented so far has been profoundly unconvincing to all those except those who are credulous or who have motivated reasons to believe. Though it would be a black swan fallacy to say that no one has been convinced of the truthfulness of Mormonism on the basis of the direct evidence, I am yet to come across anyone who has. Rather, it is the circumstantial evidence of a professed witness from the Holy Spirit that seems to be the most commonly claimed reason for belief. And it is all manner of circumstantial evidence that tends to be brought up as reasons for non-belief. Premise G really fails to say anything meaningful. It may be a Mott and Bailey fallacy as well. Given Brett's professional experience, he should know that arguing that there's a lack of direct evidence is a pretty poor defense and a worse prosecution. Argument 2 has now been updated to add one new premise, and that is Premise E. This premise reads, Joseph Smith's metallurgical fraud is so convincing that all 8 formal natural witnesses believe it until death, despite estrangement and persecution. As with the 3 witnesses, it is questionable to what extent those who lived long enough to deal with estrangement from the movement were actually estranged from the body of the saints. The premise ignores other potential motivators for why the 8 witnesses would claim a tangible experience with the plates. It's also not all 8 who were estranged. Many died very early on. Overall, the deficiencies in argument 2, the structural deficiencies that were there previously, have not been corrected, and so the argument remains invalid and unsound. Our next episodes are going to get into the circumstantial evidence, and I'm really looking forward to that. I had considered doing all these witness episodes as a single response and just appealing to Hume's on miracles, but honestly, I am glad that I decided to take the time to deal with McDonald argument by argument. With that said, I am much more excited for what is to come. The next episode starts to dive into the Book of Enoch, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that with all of you. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. I'm going to catch you in the next one.